Do you think Bloody Mary is just a children's game? A harmless slumber party ritual where frightened teenagers giggle in the dark? What if I told you that beneath this seemingly innocent folklore lies a centuries-old horror that continues to claim victims to this day? What if the truth about Bloody Mary has been deliberately obscured, hidden from public knowledge, and those who've come too close to revealing it have systematically disappeared? I'm about to share information that many would prefer remained buried. The real story behind Bloody Mary isn't just darker than the legends. It's a documented phenomenon with evidence spanning continents and centuries, evidence that powerful institutions have worked tirelessly to suppress. The origins of Bloody Mary extend far beyond the simplified version told at sleepovers. Most historians publicly attribute the legend to Queen Mary the Fawn of England, nicknamed Bloody Mary for her persecution of Protestants in the 16th century. But this convenient explanation ignores documented incidents predating Mary Tudor's reign by at least 3 centuries. The earliest recorded incident resembling the modern Bloody Mary phenomenon occurred in 1233 in the small village of Blackmere, England. Church records, kept sealed in Vatican archives until 1987, describe a local woman named Marion Blackwood who was accused of witchcraft after 5 children went missing. According to testimony from villagers, Blackwood possessed a looking glass of unusual darkness in which she could allegedly reveal secrets and glimpse the future. After Blackwood's execution by burning, villagers reported seeing her face appear in reflective surfaces throughout the town. Within weeks, 3 more children vanished without trace. The village priest documented these events before himself disappearing. His final journal entry, partially recovered in 1992, reads, "She waits in the space between reflections. God help us, she is not gone." The village of Blackmere itself no longer exists on modern maps. Official records claim it was abandoned after a plague outbreak in 1245. Geological surveys conducted in 1978 identified what appears to be the village's location, but permission for archaeological excavation was mysteriously revoked by the British Historical Society in 1979. The lead researcher, Dr. Eliza Montgomery, resigned from her position shortly after and has declined all interviews regarding the subject. Throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, similar incidents appeared across Europe. In 1381, a monastery in northern France recorded the case of a young novice who claimed to have summoned a woman's bloody face in a water basin after reciting certain Latin phrases 3 times. The novice was found dead the following morning, his eyes removed with surgical precision. The monastery's records were largely destroyed during the French Revolution, but fragments preserved in the National Library in Paris mention wounds inflicted by hands that left no other trace. In Florence, during the height of the Renaissance, 3 separate accounts from 1487 describe artists who attempted to capture the likeness of a spectral woman who allegedly appeared in mirrors when summoned through specific rituals. All 3 artists died within days of beginning their work. Their deaths were officially attributed to a fever outbreak, but private correspondence between Medici family physicians, unsealed in 2004, describes lacerations consistent with fingernails found on the inside of the throat. The pattern remained consistent, a summoning ritual, an appearance in a reflective surface, followed by either disappearance or death of those involved. Yet each incident remained isolated, treated as local superstition or coincidence, until the colonial period brought these fragmented stories together. In 1692, during the Salem witch trials, court transcripts reveal testimony from Abigail Williams, who described learning a mirror game, from Tituba, who had allegedly learned it from her homeland. Williams claimed this game could summon a bloody-faced woman who would reveal secrets or enact vengeance on enemies. While historians have focused on the political and social aspects of the Salem trials, they've overlooked this crucial connection to the European incidents. What's particularly disturbing is how the records of these specific testimonies were separated from the main Salem documents. They weren't discovered until 1947, when historian Margaret Calloway found them misfiled in an unrelated collection of shipping manifests. Calloway published her findings in a small academic journal in 1949, The entire print run was destroyed in a publishing house fire 3 days later. Calloway's subsequent manuscript on the subject was rejected by 17 publishers. She died in 1951 from what was ruled a self-inflicted wound to the throat. The investigating officer noted in his personal journal, not in the official report, that her bathroom mirror had been shattered. The 19th century saw the phenomenon evolve. The Industrial Revolution brought mass-produced mirrors into ordinary homes for the first time in history. Concurrently, folklorists recorded a surge in mirror-related legends across America and Europe. The name Bloody Mary began appearing consistently in these accounts around 1835, though variations like Mary Worth and Mary Worthington were also documented. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from 1887, when psychologist William James, while researching spiritualist practices for his landmark work on psychic phenomena, documented 7 separate cases of individuals experiencing violent physical reactions after attempting mirror summoning rituals. In notes that were omitted from his published work, James described consistent lacerations on subjects' faces and arms appearing spontaneously during interviews when they recounted their experiences. James collaborated briefly with London Society for Psychical Research on the matter, but their joint findings were never published. When asked about this research years later, James would only say it had been deemed unsuitable for public discourse. His personal papers regarding these cases were allegedly destroyed in a house fire in 1901. The only surviving document is a letter to his brother Henry, where he mentions, "An investigation that has convinced me some doors of perception are better left closed." The 20th century brought a new dimension to the phenomenon. As electric lighting became commonplace, reported Bloody Mary incidents increased dramatically. A 1937 internal memo from the Chicago Police Department, declassified in 2003, instructed officers to dismiss reports of mirror hauntings as childish pranks, despite 4 unexplained deaths associated with such reports between 1935 and 1937. All 4 victims displayed identical wounds, deep lacerations to the eyes and throat that forensic experts described as consistent with fingernail scratches but impossibly angled as if attacking from within the body. During World War II, the phenomenon spread to military bases. In 1943, 5 soldiers at Fort Benning reported seeing a woman's bloody face appear in their barracks mirror after another soldier taught them a game involving chanting her name. 2 of the soldiers died in their sleep that night. Military records attributed their deaths to heart failure, but a nurse's statement, redacted from official reports but preserved in her personal diary, described ribbons of skin removed from their faces with precision no human hand could achieve. The Cold War era saw the first scientific attempts to study the phenomenon. In 1966, parapsychologist Dr. Raymond Moody included mirror gazing in his research on altered states of consciousness. While his published work focused on more acceptable aspects of his research, his unpublished data, obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request in 2009, included documentation of subjects who experienced violent physical reactions during mirror gazing experiments. 3 subjects reported seeing a woman with bleeding eyes who knew things no one could know. The experiments were abruptly terminated after a graduate assistant was found dead in the laboratory bathroom, her eyes filled with glass shards from the shattered mirror. Meanwhile, the folklore aspect of Bloody Mary became increasingly sanitized. What was once a feared summoning ritual became a slumber party game. This transition was not accidental. A 1973 internal memo from an unnamed federal agency, partially declassified in 2011, recommended encouraging the trivialization of mirror summoning rituals through popular media to discourage serious attempts and reduce incident frequency. The strategy worked. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Bloody Mary transformed in public perception from genuine folk horror to children's legend. However, documented incidents continued. Between 1970 and 1995, police departments across 43 states recorded 189 cases involving unexplained deaths or disappearances where Bloody Mary rituals were mentioned in witness statements or victims' personal effects. These cases were never connected in official investigations, but independent researcher Caroline Werner compiled them in her 1998 book, Reflections on Horror, the Mirror Phenomenon. Werner's book was published by a small university press with an initial print run of 3,000 copies. Within a week, the publisher recalled all copies citing factual inaccuracies. Werner disputed this claim and self-published her research online in 2001. Her website was active for only 3 days before being removed. Werner herself has not been seen since October 2002. Her family received a single email from her account on the day of her disappearance that read only, "She's watching from every reflection, don't look for me." The digital age brought new dimensions to the phenomenon. In 2006, researchers at MIT's Media Lab conducted an experiment involving facial recognition algorithms and mirror reflections. The study was designed to examine how computer vision systems process reflected images. According to internal documents leaked in 2008, the program was shut down after 3 separate systems detected an unauthorized facial pattern appearing in test mirrors after hours when no humans were present in the laboratory. The pattern reportedly resembled a female face with distinctive trauma to the eye region. All data from the experiment was confiscated by unnamed federal officials, and team members were required to sign non-disclosure agreements. In 2011, the phenomenon entered the smartphone era. The Bloody Mary camera challenge briefly went viral on social media before platforms began actively removing related content. According to leaked moderation guidelines, this removal was ostensibly due to risk of self-harm, but internal communications suggested a more specific concern. An unusual number of users reported their front-facing cameras capturing unexplained facial distortions after attempting the challenge. A particularly disturbing case occurred in 2014 in Lakewood, Colorado. 16-year-old Amber Chen live-streamed herself performing the Bloody Mary ritual as part of a dare. 27 viewers watched as Chen's bathroom mirror appeared to ripple before the stream abruptly ended. Police found Chen's phone still recording in her empty bathroom. Chen herself was never found, but her final video frame, when enhanced by forensic technicians, reportedly showed a pair of hands reaching out from the mirror. This detail was redacted from public reports, but confirmed by 2 anonymous officers involved in the investigation. What makes the Bloody Mary phenomenon particularly disturbing is its consistency across cultures and time periods. Anthropologists have identified mirror summoning rituals in cultures with no historical contact, all featuring similar elements: a female entity, blood, or violence, specific invocation patterns, and terrible consequences for those who successfully make contact. The skeptical explanation that this represents common human psychology around reflections and darkness falls apart when confronted with the pattern of documented physical effects. These aren't merely sightings or hallucinations, but cases involving measurable physical trauma and disappearances. In 2018, Dr. Sofia Hernandez of the University of Chicago proposed a theory that would explain both the consistency and the physical effects. Her paper, submitted to the Journal of Paranormal Research, suggested that certain reflection-based rituals might create temporary permeability in dimensional boundaries, allowing interaction between our reality and something else. The journal accepted her paper, but before publication, Hernandez requested its withdrawal, citing methodological concerns. She took a sudden sabbatical and has not returned to her research. Her university office was found in disarray, with mirrors covered by cloth and a handwritten note that read only, "She comes through when named." Campus security footage from that night shows Hernandez working alone, then staring at her computer screen, which would have been reflective when dark, for 17 minutes without moving before abruptly leaving the building. She's not used her email or bank account since. What's particularly troubling about the Bloody Mary phenomenon isn't just its persistence, but its adaptation. The ritual has evolved across centuries, incorporating new technologies while maintaining its core elements. From polished metal in ancient times, to water surfaces in the medieval period, to manufactured glass mirrors, to digital screens today, whatever humans use to see themselves becomes a potential doorway. Law enforcement agencies have documented a disturbing trend. Since 2020, there has been a 40% increase in missing persons cases where investigation of the victim's digital devices revealed searches related to Bloody Mary or mirror rituals. These cases span demographics, with victims ranging from age 13 to 67 across socioeconomic backgrounds. The common thread is their interest in the ritual, and one other detail often overlooked. In the majority of these cases, investigators report finding the victim's mirrors either shattered or removed entirely by someone before authorities arrived. In 2022, an anonymous whistleblower claiming to be a former analyst with a three-letter agency posted a document online detailing Project Looking Glass, allegedly a decades-long government investigation into the Bloody Mary phenomenon. The document described the phenomenon as an extra-dimensional entity that utilizes reflective surfaces as points of ingress, and claimed the government had documented over 4,000 associated deaths since 1953. The post was removed within hours, and fact-checking websites quickly labeled it a hoax. However, 3 journalists who downloaded the document reported having their electronic devices simultaneously fail, followed by plumbing issues involving bathroom mirrors in their homes. One of those journalists, Taylor Martinez of the Denver Post, was working on a verification story when neighbors reported hearing screams from her apartment. Police found her bathroom empty, the mirror shattered, and blood on the shards that matched Martinez's DNA. Martinez herself was never found. The other 2 journalists abandoned their investigations. One checked into a psychiatric facility the following week. The other has declined all comment except to say, "Some stories aren't meant to be told." Perhaps most chilling are the patterns emerging from victim reports across time. Those who survive encounters consistently describe certain details: the smell of copper, the sensation of being watched from behind reflective surfaces, whispered names in empty rooms, and dreams of a woman with hollow eyes asking to be let in or let out. The phrasing varies, but the request remains consistent. Modern technology has allowed us to identify subtler patterns. Linguistic analysis of victim statements across 400 years shows consistent terminology despite translation from multiple languages. References to the space between, the other side, and watching through the glass appear with statistical significance. Victims separated by centuries and continents independently describe the entity in terms that are linguistically related to concepts of mirroring, reversal, and inversion. Medical data is equally disturbing. Autopsies of victims who died following reported encounters show consistent anomalies: unexplained lacerations with no foreign DNA, retinal damage consistent with prolonged exposure to an unidentified light source, and brain scans showing unusual activity in regions associated with facial recognition, even post-mortem. In 2023, a multidisciplinary research team began a controlled study of the phenomenon using volunteers who had reported previous Bloody Mary encounters. The study employed comprehensive monitoring, brain activity sensors, environmental metrics, and multiple camera angles. During the 3rd session, all electronic equipment simultaneously failed for 3 minutes and 33 seconds. When systems restored, 2 volunteers were experiencing identical seizures, while a third was catatonic. The catatonic subject, identified only as Subject C in redacted reports, remained unresponsive for 72 hours. Upon regaining consciousness, Subject C would only repeat, "She's learning our technology, she's finding new ways through." The study was immediately terminated. The raw data, obtained through anonymous sources, shows something the official report omits. In the final frame before the equipment failure, all cameras monitoring reflective surfaces, including the glossy monitor screens, captured the same image. A woman's face with no eyes, mouth open in what linguists who analyzed the visual described as the shape of a name being spoken. The most recent documented case occurred just 3 months ago in Auburn, Washington. High school students Emily Wilson and Luke Patel attempted the ritual during a live stream for their small following. Viewers reported seeing nothing unusual until Luke pointed his phone toward the bathroom mirror, at which point the stream quality degraded significantly. When the image cleared, both teenagers were gone. The phone was found still recording, pointed at an empty bathroom. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed a single frame showing what appears to be a hand reaching from the mirror's surface. Investigators initially suspected a hoax until they processed the audio from the stream. Voice analysis experts confirmed the final sounds were not produced by human vocal cords. What connects all these incidents across time and space? What entity responds to this specific summoning? The pattern is too consistent, the physical evidence too tangible to dismiss as mere urban legend. Something waits in reflective surfaces, something that knows when it's being discussed, called upon, or researched. You might wonder why this information isn't common knowledge, why mainstream science hasn't acknowledged this phenomenon despite centuries of documentation. The answer is as disturbing as the phenomenon itself: systematic suppression, not merely through government classification, but through a more insidious mechanism: ridicule. By relegating Bloody Mary to the realm of children's games and urban legends, the genuine threat remains hidden in plain sight, while those who encounter the truth are dismissed as superstitious or unstable. There's another layer to consider. What if the children's game version serves a purpose for the entity itself? What if trivializing the ritual encourages more attempts, more invocations, more opportunities for whatever waits on the other side? Consider what happens when you're alone tonight, washing your face before bed, looking into your bathroom mirror. That brief moment when you turn off the light but haven't yet left the room. The seconds where your eyes haven't adjusted to the darkness, but you can still make out the suggestion of your reflection. What if in that moment someone else is looking back? What if they've always been looking back, waiting for an invitation? The evidence suggests the Bloody Mary phenomenon isn't merely supernatural, it's predatory. The summoning ritual doesn't create the entity, it simply opens a door that, according to multiple witness testimonies, becomes easier to open with each attempt. What medieval witnesses described as a thinning of the veil, modern physicists might term a weakening of dimensional barriers through repeated stress patterns. Every child who whispers her name in a darkened bathroom, every teenager who attempts the ritual at a slumber party, every researcher who documents the phenomenon. We're all potentially making that door easier to open. We're teaching the entity new ways to cross over. You've read this far, which means you now know the pattern. You've been exposed to the concept, the history, the possibility. And here's where I must offer a warning. Awareness itself may be a vector. Multiple documents from otherwise unrelated cases include a consistent detail. Those who learn about the true nature of Bloody Mary report experiencing a sense of being watched through reflective surfaces. They describe catching glimpses of movement in mirrors seen from the corner of their eye. They mention dreams of a woman who knows their name, who asks questions about their world, who seems to be learning. In 1967, Dr. Richard Matthews documented what he termed the awareness contagion aspect of the phenomenon. His research indicated that simply knowing about Bloody Mary in detail made individuals more likely to experience encounters, even without performing the ritual. Matthews's work was never published. His research notes, recovered after his disappearance in 1970, included a final entry. It's not summoning that creates the danger. It's attention, and I've given it far too much of mine. As you read these words, are you more aware of the reflective surfaces around you? Your phone screen, your computer monitor, windows darkened by night, the glossy surface of a table, each one a potential threshold. This isn't meant to frighten you needlessly, but knowledge is both protection and risk. If you've experienced unusual phenomena around mirrors since beginning this reading, reflections that seem to move independently, whispers from empty rooms, dreams of a woman with bleeding eyes, you're not alone. Thousands have reported the same pattern throughout history. The question that remains is, what exactly is Bloody Mary? The medieval explanation, a witch's vengeful spirit, feels inadequate given the phenomenon's persistence and cross-cultural manifestation. Modern parapsychologists have proposed various theories: a thought form created by centuries of collective belief, an entity from a parallel dimension that resembles human form but isn't human, a manifestation of human psychological response to our own reflections. But there's another possibility, one suggested in the oldest accounts. What if mirrors have always been more than reflective surfaces? What if they're boundaries between worlds? And what if certain rituals, performed with specific words in specific settings, temporarily breach those boundaries? The consistent physical evidence, identical wounds across centuries, missing persons, electronic disruptions, suggests something capable of affecting our physical reality, something that can reach through, pull back, and sometimes cross over entirely. I've shared this information despite the risks because the alternative is worse, allowing the phenomenon to remain hidden behind childhood legends while it continues to claim victims. Awareness, despite its dangers, is still our best defense. If you've experienced anything unusual while reading this, a sudden chill, the sense of being watched, reflections that don't match your movements exactly, remain calm but vigilant. Do not attempt the ritual under any circumstances. If you have mirrors in your sleeping space, consider covering them at night, a practice common across numerous cultures for reasons few can articulate but many instinctively follow. Most importantly, understand that attention feeds the phenomenon. The more you look for her in reflective surfaces, the more likely you are to find her looking back. You now possess knowledge that spans centuries, compiled from sources that powerful institutions have worked to suppress. What you do with this knowledge matters. Sharing it carries risks, both for you and those you tell. Ignoring it leaves others vulnerable to encounters they can't understand or protect themselves against. As I conclude this account, I feel compelled to acknowledge something. The act of writing this has changed my relationship with mirrors. I find myself avoiding them when possible, covering them when not. Last night, I dreamt of a woman who knew my name, who asked questions about my world, who seemed to be learning. But dreams are just dreams. Reflections are just reflections. At least, that's what we tell ourselves to feel safe. The truth about Bloody Mary isn't just a story. It's a warning echoing across centuries. A warning about doors we can open but cannot close. Next time you're alone in a bathroom, before you flip the light switch, take one last look in the mirror. Is that movement just your imagination? Is your reflection pausing a half-second too long before mirroring your departure? Is something watching from the space where only light and glass should exist? Remember, she knows when she's being discussed. Some say even thinking about her too. Intently can create enough of a connection for her to sense your awareness. And now that you know her story, now that you understand she's more than legend, she might just be aware of you too. If you've made it this far, if you've absorbed this information, consider this final thought. Every mirror in your home is a potential doorway, and now something on the other side might know you're looking. Sleep well tonight. And maybe, just to be safe, cover your mirrors.